Everyone has to have a go-to tool for light painting if they do any kind of car photography. But even if you don't shoot cars, there's a lot of reasons why a photographer should look into this technique. Today I'm going to discuss a little of my own history with light painting, what features to look out for, and what I'm using today. If you want to go straight to my current weapon of choice, then feel free to skip ahead. Back in 2007, I was trying to add lighting to my arsenal of photography skills. I felt comfortable shooting cars under natural light, but I felt it was time I delved into some flash photography. Now, after a bit of poor advice given from another photographer at the time, he insisted I had to buy 50 grand worth of the most elite flash equipment, or I was wasting my time shooting cars. I decided instead to delve into light painting instead because it was cheaper and more accessible at the time. Now, I know light painting is so rudimentary these days, but you have to understand that back then, light painting was a very, very niche technique. It didn't lend itself very well to film photography. Now, I started entirely in digital, as that was around the transitional period from film to digital. And I remember during those years, a generation of emerging digital photographers were exploring and pushing light painting to that next level. Because we had the benefit of seeing results immediately on location, and we could afford to redo our light painting until it was perfect. But back then, we didn't really have these super affordable, super bright LED light sticks to play with. And as for the KinoFlow tubes, which were highly used in the advertising industry, they weren't really super accessible to the everyday photographer either. So I used these big old halogen torches. They were rated in candle power back then and used a sealed lead acid battery to power them. The light beam was awful, but I used grease paper from KFC on my way to a car shoot and taped the paper over the torch. It was obviously an abysmal setup, but it worked, for me at the time at least, and it helped get me these shots. Instead of 50 grand worth of expensive flashy equipment, I took my photography to that next level for myself, spending less than 50 bucks worth at Home Depot. Fast forward a few years, and a well-known wedding photographer named Jerry Gonis developed what would be called the ice light. It was groundbreaking for the time and literally exactly what photographers like me needed for light painting. There has since been an ice light too, but there are now so many other products on the market that have effectively copied and improved upon the original ice light design. But I thought it was worthwhile to give a nod to the original ice light, since I think it really was groundbreaking at the time and just what car photographers and digital car photographers needed. The size has generally been unchanged, but you want a wand that you can handhold to wave around comfortably. Some lights utilize replaceable batteries and some are built in, and there's pros and cons to either. But what you really want nowadays is RGB and good diffusion on the lights. Some cheaper lights have poor diffusion and spread in them, which requires adding an additional layer of diffusion or bounce to get rid of the individual LED look. And RGB is so crucial now to get that sweet, sweet colored gel look. So Viltrox reached out to me with their new light painting light, the Weeylite K21. Retailing at $69 US, it's the most ideal iteration of a light painting tool I've seen so far. It does have a tripod mount on both ends, but it also has a magnetic backing, so you can slap the light on metal areas in a pinch. I used it to light my camera gear on a night shoot recently. It has complete RGB adjustability, different scene modes, and beautifully soft, diffused light. It has an internal non-removable battery, and it's a tad on the smaller side. But what I find myself doing nowadays is, rather than having one big light stick, I'm using 2 or 3 of these smaller suckers to have more finesse and control over my light painting. It's also great for shooting interiors and details because it's really difficult to fit larger lights in a small interior tight space area. Now, bear in mind, this is what I'm using these days, and it's by no means the only light out there for you. To be honest, I think the best approach is probably to have a combination of different tools for light painting. In my opinion, I think every photographer should have a couple of these kinds of lights in their toolkit. I'm using these K21s now, but there are plenty of other options online to choose from.